Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to this short tutorial on how to prepare for the Roleplay exam for Foundation Tier AQA Spanish. Now, even if you are doing a higher tier exam, it's useful that you do follow this tutorial through because the higher tier Roleplay builds on the same principles as the Foundation Tier, albeit there's a few added difficulties that I'll cover in a future tutorial. Now, before we go on to talk about the roleplay itself and how to prepare for it, it's probably important that we go through the overall structure of the speaking exam for GCSE Spanish. Now, the structure itself is exactly the same for higher tier as it is for foundation tier. You start off with a roleplay, like the one that we've got in front of us. And on that roleplay, what you have to do is you have to give the examiner some pieces of information that are given to you on the card. So you have to say those pieces of information and convey those messages to the examiner. Following that, you have a photo card where you get given a photograph. You need to describe that photograph and then answer some follow-up questions. And the final section is a general conversation where your teacher will ask you general questions about two of the themes that you haven't covered in the exam in the previous sections, and you have to answer the questions on those themes. So it's quite straightforward. So the structure is exactly the same. What's different is the timings. So for both the higher and the foundation tier, the role plays a maximum of 2 minutes. People do tend to complete it very, very quickly. So if you do complete it in 30 seconds, you haven't done anything wrong. You've done it right. Foundation tier, it's 2 minutes, and higher tier, it's 3 minutes. And the final section, the general conversation, this is where there's a big difference. Foundation tier, it lasts between 3 to 5 minutes, and the higher tier, it lasts between 5 to 7 minutes. Today, we're going to focus on the roleplay itself. Now, I'm going to give you several strategies. I'm going to give you a little step-by-step guide of what to do in the exam and how to follow it through. So the roleplay, you'll be given on a piece of card, looking like the example on the left-hand side of my screen just there now that says roleplay 2. So it'll look like this here. And it's a separate piece of card. You'll be given some instructions, and underneath you'll have a little box with 5 points. And those 5 points are what you need to answer and the bits of information that you need to give across. Now, what's really, really important is on the role play and the photo card is that you can prepare these in advance of starting to actually speak. So you can script out everything that you're going to say, which is fantastic. However, what's really important is that you don't write on the actual role play cards. Alternatively, you'll be given some line paper, and that's where you should write your answers. The reason for this is because centres get given 1 or 2 packs of role plays and photo cards, and these have to be used by other students. So it's really, really important that you don't write on those. First thing you want to do before you get in is read the actual task that's given to you. So it'll give you some instructions for candidates. Your teacher will play the part of your Bolivian friend and will speak first. You should address your friend as tú. Always highlight that. In Spanish, you've got tú, which is you singular informal, and you've got usted, you singular formal. So do be aware of that. That little bit will tell you which one to use. When you see the exclamation mark, you'll have to respond to something that you have not prepared. Now, I like to call this the surprise question. And when we see the question mark, we have to ask a question. So I've read the instructions. I'm going to read through the task now. Estás hablando con tu amigo boliviano, tu amiga boliviana, sobre un día en el instituto. Transporte al instituto, tu asignatura preferida y una razón. Got our exclamation mark, which is my surprise question. Question about clubs en el instituto, and clases cuántas por día. So there's 5 points in total. Each point, you get a maximum of 2 marks for communication. So if what you say is in good Spanish and it gets that bit of information across, you get 2 marks. At the end, a separate mark out of 5 for the quality of language that you use. So is your Spanish good? Are your verbs conjugated properly? And does what you say make sense? And you get another mark of 5. So the whole thing is out of 15. So the first thing we've done is we've read through the task itself. And the second thing that I would do is read through the context really carefully. The context is this little bit of blurb where I've got the star there. So it says, Estás hablando con tu amigo boliviano, tu amiga boliviana sobre un día en el instituto. So you're talking to your Bolivian friend about a day in school. So this context, in this case, it's not very important, but as you'll see with another roleplay that's coming up, the context can be really, really important and can help frame your answers, okay? But for the time being, all I've done is I've translated it. I know what the context is. So I've read the task, read the context. Next thing I need to do is I need to translate the points into English that I'm given. But before I do that, I'm going to write down my numbers 1 to 5. Now, the reason why I'm writing down the numbers 1 to 5 is because the numbers 1 to 5 correspond to the different tasks that you're given on the sheet. And it means that as you go through the exam, you can put your finger on your answer and read it out and keep track of where you are. I know that point number 3 is my surprise question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little exclamation mark there to keep me on track. And point number 4 is my question. So I'm going to put my little question mark so I know that I have to write a question there. Now, do be aware that the position of the surprise question and the question that you have to ask can change. So it's not a rule of thumb that it will always appear there. So now I've got my points 1 to 5 down. I've put my surprise question and my question mark. What I'm going to do is I'm going to translate each point into English first. So I've translated them. So transporte al instituto, transport school, tu asignatura preferida y una razón, your favorite subject and why. Please note that this one has got a second part. You must say why as well. Third one is my surprise question, so I can't do anything about that. Fourth one, I have to ask a question about clubs at school. And the last one, what I have to do is I have to say how many classes I have per day. Now, what's really important to notice is that these, when we translate them into English, they actually don't make that much sense. It doesn't transport to school. If I just say transport to school, the examiner's not going to have a clue what it is that I'm going on about. So what we have to do after we translate them into English is our next step is to write down what it is that AQA want us to say. So transport to school, I'm going to put I go to school by cars. They want us to say how we get there. Favorite subject, that's pretty straightforward, so I'm going to leave that one, same as above. I have to ask a question about clubs. So I might say, do you like? And classes, how many per day? How many classes I have a day? So now I've got down what AQA want me to say. What I can do now is I can start putting this into good Spanish. So that's my next step, is to script out what it is I'm going to say. So I go to school by car. And what you'll notice is you can use some of the words that are given you in the task. Now, obviously, I've shortened instituto down to insti, but you can just lift that word. Your favorite subject and why. Again, I'm going to use what's given to me. But if I use what's given to me here, I'm going to put tu. I have to change that tu from you and talking about your favorite subject to talking about my favorite subject. So I'm going to change it to me. And don't forget, we have to say why. I'm going to do that by saying because. Can't do anything for my surprise question. Now, for the one where we have to ask a question, the first thing to do is look at the task. This task isn't giving me any interrogatives. It's not asking me to say how. It's not asking me to say where, when, how. So because of that, what I can do is I can just put in front of it, do you like? Clubs at school. So do you like? And remember, it has to be about clubs at school. Again, I'm using exactly the wording that's given to me down here. When we're using gustar, remember in Spanish we don't say, do you like chocolate? We say, do you like the chocolate? In the same way, we're going to say, do you like the clubs at school? So I'm going to have to put my article, los. And because los clubs is plural, I have to change te gusta to te gustan. And last one, classes per day. I'm going to use this per day. I'm going to say I have however many classes a day. Using exactly what's given to me. Now, what's important is I might not have 5 classes a day. In fact, I teach 7 or 8 classes a day. What's important is that you get something down that communicates. It does not have to be true. Okay, that's really, really important. So, what we've done is we've read the task, we've read the context, we've translated the points into English, we've then said what AQA want us to say. We've scripted out our answers. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to check our verbs. So rather than saying, you go to school by car, I want to make sure I've said I. I'm happy with that boy. I've changed that to your to my. So I'm happy with that. I've said, when I'm asking the question, I'm saying, I like clubs. I have to say, do you like clubs? So I'm happy with that. That means you. And how many classes per day I have, I've used tengo, which is I have. So I'm happy with that now. Now what I can do after this is I take this into the exam. I would keep my finger, and when my teacher asks me a question, I just follow through with my finger as I go and read out where I'm at. Now for this surprise question, there's one last thing I encourage you to do, and it's on the bottom of your notes, is write puedes repetir, which means can you repeat? Because that surprise question, you can ask your teacher to repeat as many times as you want in Spanish, and they will repeat it. And it'll give you that extra little bit of time just to think before you give an answer, giving you yourself the chance to access those 2 marks. So, once you've done that, take your notes in and read them out. Now we're going to have a look at another example. I'm going to prepare it in exactly the same way underneath. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read the task. So your teacher will play the part of an employee in a Spanish train station and will speak first. You should address the employee as usted. This is important. The reason why, when we use usted, we use the he, she endings of the verb. So we have to use the he, she endings of the verb. So rather than saying te gusta, I have to use le gusta. So always make a little note of that somewhere on your answer page over here. That is my surprise question. My question mark, I have to ask a question. So I'm going to read through the whole task first. Estás hablando con el empleado en una estación de trenes en España. Tu viaje, ¿dónde? Día del viaje. Surprise question. Billete, tipo, un detalle, duración del viaje. And I have to ask a question about that. So, read from my task, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through my context again. This context is really, really important. The reason why, if you go to a train station in Spain and you're talking to an employee in a train station, it's most likely that you're going to be traveling somewhere. So the answers that you give have to be framed in the future time frame. So you're going to be looking at using things such as quiero, I want, voy, I'm going, or voy a, I'm going to, plus your infinitive, rather than I went. So this is where the context can give you a little bit of help. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write down my numbers 1 to 5. I'm going to fill in my surprise question, which funnily enough, again, it's on number 3, but this time, look, our question is right down at the bottom. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to translate my points into English. So I've got my translations into English now. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write down what AQA want me to say. So here, so you can see now I've framed my answers in the future time frame. Where am I going to? So what I need to do now is I need to take these points and I need to now put them into Spanish. So and what I hope you're noticing as I'm going, I'm not giving long responses. If you give a long response in the role play, it's likely that your teacher will cut you out. You don't want that happening to you. I know for me, that would make me incredibly nervous. So keep it short in this role play and sweet. If it says one detail, that can literally be first class, second class, okay? It doesn't need to be much. I remember when we go on a day of the week in Spanish, we just say, I am going the Monday, rather than on Monday. So whenever my ticket type, I'm thinking I want a first class ticket. And the question, remember, we're going to use le gusta because it's usted this time. And then that we don't say, do you like duration of the journey? We say, do you like the duration of the journey? So we have to put our article in. Those nouns that end in CION are often feminine. So I'm going to put la. And there we have it. Next step, I'm going to check my verbs. Voy, I'm going. Voy, I'm going. I'm happy with that. Quiero, I want. And this le matches with my usted up here, so I'm happy with that. And then I'm going to take that into the exam and read through. So to finish, first things first, read through the task, then read through your context, write your numbers 1 to 5, insert your exclamation mark and your question mark, translate the points into English, Then write down what AQA want you to say. Once you've done this, put your answers into good Spanish using bits from the task that you can use in your answer. Remember, change anything that says tú to me to make sure that you're talking about yourself. And for the question, make sure you talk about you. So you're talking about somebody else, you're asking the question. After you've done that, check your verbs. Check that you've changed tú to me. Then take your notes into the exam, use your finger and follow it through point by point and read your answer out. Don't forget, one last little thing. Before you go in, always write down puede, or if it's the tú form, puedes repetir, and your teacher will repeat. Hope that's been useful and good luck with your role plays.